Uh, in the next 15 minutes, we will go through the Atom platform architecture. So, Atom has a microservices based architecture. All the components in Atom are Docker containers, so it can plug into customers' Kubernetes, or we can also deploy Kubernetes as part of the Atom deployment. So each of these microservices can scale horizontally and independently. So depending on the demand, the discovery component can be scaled automatically. Atom has a self-monitoring and self-healing capabilities as well. Because of this modern architecture, you get all the advantages like high availability, geo-redundancy, hitless upgrades, um, multi-tenancy, and role-based access. And this can be deployed on-prem or also in the public clouds. Atom follows a distributed server agent model. So the agents sit closer to the devices. Agents do the hard work of collecting telemetry or provisioning commands to the devices. The server actually stays in the cloud, and server takes care of the life cycle of the agent. The agent could be a Docker container, a VM, or an app. So the agent is the one that's initiating the connection to the server, so there's no need to open any firewall ports. So Atom maintains the full life cycle of that agent. Atom can be offered as an automation as a service. So we empower MSPs or managed service providers to deliver in a multi-tenant environment. In fact, our Atom cloud uses the same principles to deliver a SaaS experience for our customers. So customers can come to Anuta's website, request for an Atom instance. And behind the scenes, Atom will run the tenant onboarding workflows, and then it will deploy an instance dedicated to that customer, either in a shared environment or a completely separate dedicated environment. And then Atom will also install the agents. Each customer or tenant gets a dedicated IP address, namespace, and certificate. So we ensure consistency and security across multiple tenants. So the MSPs can offer this automation as a service. So we provide the toolkit and the technology to publish new software, new workflows, new out-of-box support on an ongoing basis to the enterprise customers. Security is critical to this. So we support single sign-on, SAML, and we integrate with Active Directory as well as LDAP. There is complete separation in terms of the customer data, all the way to storing that information into the database. All the health information is also segregated. So you have complete isolation when it comes to multi-tenant environments. Role-based access is very important in these multi-tenant environments. So we provide a very granular role-based access framework. So you can have different tenants, and within each tenant, you can have different departments. And there's granular control as to which resources are allowed for which users. And you can define varieties of rules based on location, based on device, based on time of day, and enable the access for various tenants. As I mentioned, Atom uses cloud native principles, so it supports horizontal scale. You can continue to add resources to support lot of throughput when it comes to automation. When it comes to cross-domain workflows, we have validated 2,000 workflows per hour. In this particular scenario, we were upgrading software on one of the devices. So it's a massively scalable software that can support large enterprise and large service providers. These are some of our recent customer wins where Atom has automated cross-domain scenarios. You will see that it's a variety of customers, some enterprise, some service providers, some federal customers. in different domains: data center, WAN, transport, core, and enterprise networks. And every customer is different. There is some sort of integration needed, whether it's the ticketing system, OSS layer, or assurance systems. And even within Atom, because it's based off microservices, you can pick and choose, and you can select a few modules of Atom and deploy for every customer. So these are the benefits with cross-domain automation from Atom. It ensures consistency in terms of user experience, security, and policy. It avoids the manual handoffs, eliminates redundancies, reduces operating expenses. Because of your single pane of glass, you now have full visibility across multiple domains, and you can still have granular control of each domain as well. And it eliminates or avoids the errors when it comes to integrations as well as operational aspects. This is my last slide. In summary, Anuta Atom delivers a comprehensive low-code workflow automation that supports multi-vendor, multi-domain networks with a modern architecture with cloud-native principles, and continue to invest in out-of-box integrations and out-of-box workflows. We can offer a lot of value to the customers.
I've got a question about your agent server model. Can you talk a little bit more about agent deployment? Like, for example, if I'm using Anuta to manage switches in a data center, where would that agent or agents reside?
So agent is a separate virtual machine or a Docker container or an app. It doesn't have to be installed on the physical device or on the controller. It as long as it has management level connectivity, it should be fine. So we don't need to install the agent on the router, on the controller, on the switch. It stays outside of that device.
Okay, so I would maybe run an agent on a server in a rack in a data center?
Yeah, or you could have if you have Kubernetes already installed, you can run it as a Docker container. It's a very lightweight app. So it's fairly straightforward that way. Yeah.
And is there sort of a general number around number of agents per devices?
So the number of devices per agent is very subjective. It depends on what the agent is doing. If it's only configurations, we can do 1,000 devices per agent. But when you have to collect operational metrics, that's when the agent capacity goes down. So we will have to, as part of the deployment, we can do the sizing and give you recommendations.
Thank you.
I had a question around some privacy things. Like, does this framework or anything collect any sort of customer data, or like where does that live, or any sort of like ISO 27001, GDPR, any of those kind of concerns here with this platform?
Yeah, so the software itself, when deployed on premises, it's pretty much completely within the environment that customer owns and operates on a regular basis. And the Atom can be deployed on premises in a private cloud, like a data center, or a public cloud, but completely self-managed from a customer standpoint. So in that sense, Atom is equipped to support whatever data privacy requirements that the customer may have. But in the case of Atom deployed as a SaaS platform where customer is consuming services in a cloud environment, the data will be sitting in a public cloud that Atom is pretty much managing from a system standpoint, and the customer is signing up to the service, automation as a service. So in that scenario, we do have different deployment options as to where the customer data can reside. And since we support deployment options in various different theaters, so based on the customer requirements, we can get the data to be residing in that particular location. And because we will have a different Atom stack servicing customers in different geographical regions. And as Kiran was pointing out earlier, we do support multi-tenancy. So again, depending on the customer requirement, we will be able to slice and dice the customer into a particular Atom instance. In some cases, it might be dedicated, and in some cases, it might be shared across tenants, but it really depends on the customer requirements for privacy.
Awesome. Thank you.
So you mentioned multi-tenancy, MSPs, right? So I'm thinking MSPs. Is there like views for them? Like, for example, if I have like 20 different customers, and I can have just a separate, I guess, instance for each one of them, and just separate, and I can give each customer access to their own,
Dashboard.
I guess, org
Yes,
or whatever
exactly.
you want to call it,
Right.
that kind of stuff. Okay.
Right. Yeah. So when I think as Kiran was pointing out earlier, the multi-tenancy is completely top-down and also bottom-up. So what it means is that all the data that gets in is tagged when the data is being collected. And the same way, when a user logs in, the user belongs to an organization. The organization it could be a hierarchy, it could be an organization structure within an enterprise, or it could be Coke versus Pepsi, where they're two different complete entities. So all the top-down like APIs and user interface is driven by the same hierarchy. And in the case of an MSP, MSP can come in, they can deploy Atom for themselves in a public cloud. They can go to like a onboarding of the tenants, and we have automated the complete process of tenant onboarding as well. And each tenant is going to get their own URLs, and they will have their own authorization and authentication system that could be linked to that particular organization's LDAP or ADR, some of those appropriate systems. So in that sense, yeah, we do provide a complete isolation. And even in the multi-tenancy, wherever the things need to be isolated from a identity and authentication point of view, we are not going to share infrastructure in those scenarios wherever security or wherever authorization is being done. So it's a completely, I would say, segmented system catering to MSP needs. Yes.
What else? User licensing. Sorry. Is it license? I'm looking at the licensing page. Is it per user, per device? How?
It's per device.
Okay.
But of course, there are different variations of devices. Like the license for a low-end access switch is very different from a license for a controller or a license for a high-end data center device.
What about like for on the wireless side, right? It would be, for example, something like based on per access point or
per controller, but the size of the controller. There could be a small controller which has 500 access
Well,
points.
if it's a
medium
cloud-based thing,
controller.
right? I mean, there's no controller, right? In that case, so how would that work then?
In that case, it's just size of deployment and a little bit of a honor system in that case. So
Okay.
we go with the customer's plans.
Okay.